Creating is a battle with yourself. People don't realize this until they actually sit down and try to make something that comes from within. I've tried to make this podcast many times, and the most serious one was 2 days ago when I just sat down and started recording. I had an idea, I even had a name that it turns out it already has been used multiple times. And it should have been pretty obvious with how easily I was able to come up with the name, right? It was like the One Take Podcast or something. And the name doesn't work because I started lying right away. I said, "Oh, yeah, hello, this is the One Take Podcast." And then I had two takes on the same podcast. I started talking about everything I care, and then it was too long. You know, it just happens. And this is a struggle that I'm talking about when I talk about the struggle with yourself. For a guy like me, you sometimes get in your own way. You trip with your own feet, trying to do things that, take time and effort. And you say, well, maybe later. Maybe this is not the time. And I almost thought that after the name was taken. I already had my 5, 6 minutes of my little podcast that I was going to publish. And I even made an illustration, which I'm going to use for this podcast now. But I was already feeling down. I was like, okay, maybe next week I will try it again. I will think over the course of this week at work, um, what about another name? And then it hit me. The name of this podcast will be a name that I thought maybe 15 years ago. And I never thought that I will put a name like that on a podcast. It was just something that I will say to make my friends laugh. It was a word that had no meaning at all. I just came up with it on the spot. Eh, and it was just something fun to say, which I guess this is the same thing. I am just, trying to have fun. Maybe this has no meaning, but well, what does? Creating is a struggle because you actually have to look inside and then check how dumb you actually are. You hear yourself think out loud, you hear yourself talk, you see yourself move, you see your eyes, and that's tough for some people. It is tough for me. You have to have a lot of confidence in who you are, who you have become, and not everyone is in such a good spot to just embrace themselves. I know I struggle with that. I know a lot of people struggle with that. And if it wasn't for that, there will be a lot more beautiful art out there that sadly it just gets buried either on the algorithm or on self doubt. Then you think about the haters. It's something that worries me too. Like, what if people hate me? But you know what? I'm just gonna do it. You know, like, this is on. I am able to do it. I know how to do it. Who cares if it's not the best thing in the world right away? I am not the best thing in the world. I mean, people are born and they're not born with the full value they can bring to the world. They learn, they grow up, they eat, all those things that you do when you grow up. So yeah, this is me creating something, and like it has become too meta, right? I am talking about the creation of something. I'm not talking about anything, but maybe this is how it will be. And you know what? Who cares? That's it, folks. That is my take. Creating is a struggle with yourself. Sometimes that struggle brings up things about you that you wouldn't like to know, but it will bring them out. That happens when you write poetry, when you write a story, and if you are at least a little bit self-critical, you will understand things about you and find them out. And not everyone's ready for that. And I haven't been ready for that in a long time. I lose maybe a lot of time trying to avoid it, and I'm tired of just judging myself. I am just gonna be, and maybe you can be yourself too. And this is not self-help. I hate that stuff. I really hate self help books, because not only they try to they're a piece of propaganda, right? You have things like multipliers, or things like that corporations love to use to brainwash people into believing that they should give an entity that doesn't actually care about them more than they were hired to do. And that stuff is just like devious. I don't like self help at all. But I just create, like I'm a dumbass, and you may create something better, But that doesn't even matter. I try to remember, David Lynch and him just creating stuff, even if people wouldn't understand it. And there's a lot of people like that I will learn from. So this is me talking about the creative struggle, and it hasn't been said many many times, but I'm feeling it right now, and I think it makes it real, makes it true, and I am here just leaving it. Now let's talk a little bit about what I expect the podcast to be about. And well, it's gonna be about me, obviously. I'm awesome, but I want to talk about spirituality, creativity, art, things that I think about the world. And actually, now that I brought the self help, I feel like it's like astrology, It's like, it's not a real thing, but it helps some people, but not in a. You don't learn things about the world, Maybe it's too much of a hot take saying shit about the the astrology, or about self help, because it may have helped some people to understand their reality. But what you actually need is like material analysis of your surroundings. Yeah, maybe next time I'll talk more about that. But yeah, I expect this podcast to be about what I like in the world, what I don't like in the world, spirituality, technology, creativity, all those things that have interested me since I was young and that I love to talk about. Maybe even some history, but if I start talking about history, these podcasts are going to be like 35 years long. Not that I actually know the most about history, but I do like it a lot. And I find some things that have happened throughout history very poetic. And not because of the glory, but because there's some things that are just so funny that they have happened too many times, or that they happen at all. So this is the final part of the podcast where I tell you thank you for listening. This is the first one. There will be more to come. I hope that they're not too long, to keep people engaged. And next time, we'll talk about something else. Remember, this is a Nosik Podcast, and have a good day.